Hello and welcome to the Anatomy of Marriage.
Wow.
I wanted to say it before you did.
Oh, darn it. All right.
Hello and welcome to the Anatomy of Marriage podcast. I'm your host, Melanie Studley.
And my name is Seth Studley, and we are in
Downton Abbey.
Yeah, Downton Abbey. We are shooting in my 93-year-old British grandma's house, and now there's cat hair all over the thing.
I set it on the ground.
Which is really funny. So this is a bonus episode because we are back in deep in my family of origin, and we have been getting a lot of questions on how to navigate in-laws, how to navigate family of origin stuff, and it's a really large topic, and that's why we had so many questions about it, because it never goes away. It changes, it's dynamic, and it's always something to navigate, good and bad.
And before we really jump into the episode, if you're listening to this, you can watch it. You can see
you can see the
Lady
castle.
Grantham's castle. And you can go to our website, anatomyofmarriage.com, and watch it there on our YouTube channel. So I just wanted to say that before we dive in.
And I want to read 2 5-star review
quotes of the day
from iTunes. And they're kind of long, but they're really good. So this is from Ask a Kelly. Well executed and extremely helpful, 5 stars. Melanie and Seth invite listeners into some very real and very raw moments into their lives as a way to start a much needed conversation about marriage and what it looks like to live that commitment out in reality. My fiance and I are about to get married post-divorced. We are both divorced, and we've been using this podcast to help us have a starting point to facilitate some conversations about our own perspectives, our families of origins, our past, our needs, our expectations, and our approach to relationship, communication, and our shared life together. This podcast has been a very helpful tool for us to tune ourselves into asking ourselves and the other person questions about challenging issues and create safety through responses to vulnerability. Thank you, Melanie and Seth, for your hearts, your hard work, your vision, and your execution of this podcast. Much love to you. Thank you. Now, why don't you read the second one right there?
Oh, I gotta read
this
one.
From Batgirl26.
Melanie and Seth deserve a podcast award. Heck yeah!
Thanks.
Do they make those? They probably do. This podcast is so honest and insightful. Using your own marriage to better ours is brilliant, but also must have been terrifying. Yeah.
Sort of.
I applaud you and thank you more than I can even say. There are so many nuggets of truth that I started taking notes of things. Ooh, that's a good idea. And I wanted to share with my husband. As I listen, I realized things I have never thought about in such a way that it actually changed me. My husband and I talked last night and shared truths that I have learned from this podcast, and his mind was blown as well. We have been struggling lately, fighting too much, not communicating well, getting frustrated with each other. Melanie and Seth changed my marriage for the better, and they might have even saved it. High five to saving marriage. Yeah. And then some more.
I love you guys. Thank you so much for being vulnerable for us.
You're welcome.
Yeah, you are welcome. That was one of my favorite reviews because imagine this. Being vulnerable benefits ourselves and also benefits you. So basically what we're doing is helping ourselves and just recording it.
We're helping you help us, help you help us, help you us.
Yeah, and it's just nice.
It's the best.
In therapy, I coined a term, and that is called a serendipitous exchange.
You've talked about it.
Do you know what that means?
You've talked about it.
All right, let's get in it.
So, again, we're talking about in-laws, boundaries, all this stuff, because that's what we are in right now. And I posted a question in our private, in the women's group, on Anatomy of Marriage women's group, and y'all ladies killed it. There's like 1,000 comments, and it's so cool. There's just like thread after thread. So if you're not in the women's group on our Facebook page, get into it. And
it's free. It's private.
Yeah, it's private so that the ladies can chit chat about what's going on. But thank you, ladies, for stepping up and giving questions and stuff to talk about. So this episode is for you. Well, it's for everybody, but it's your responsibility. It's your fault. What's the word?
Not sure. Can you just read? That'd be great.
No, I'm talking to my ladies. Anyway, I'll just read. Okay, so the first question is asking about let's talk about boundaries, when to respect and honor them, and when to put your foot down. So what are your thoughts on that?
I think of Bowen theory of differentiation, and although we've talked about differentiation.
That's what I think of too.
This is therapist talk. Let me just take
Keep
the reins
on,
here.
keep on.
A couple of tenets of Bowen therapy, and specifically one, the concept of differentiation, which we've talked about. And as we begin to differentiate for ourselves, we can also join with our partner and create our own thing within the larger context of in-laws and family, and then be able to differentiate what we want compared to what they want. And part of that is creating boundaries, what's okay, what is not okay, what you'll be flexible with, and what you won't be flexible with, if that makes sense. And this person talked about putting their foot down. Without context, I don't know obviously what that looks like. Is the in-laws, are they saying inappropriate things over and over that make you feel belittled or less than, or you stole my child, or things like that? And most of the time,
I would say
99% of the time when things like that come up, it is the parent, the in-law, who is having a hard time adjusting, I don't know, letting go of their child, or having to let go of some semblance of control over their child,
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
I think that I was on the phone with my mom about this morning, actually, and I was realizing like the men in the group didn't really comment. It was almost exclusively women who were actually, no, it was only women, I think.
I didn't post anything about it.
It doesn't, I mean, even in the general group.
Oh, okay.
So my thought is that, and I think that I only understand this now because I have sons, but I think it is much harder for mothers to let go of their sons, so to speak, let go. And so there's this problem because like what we ran into in our marriage, your mom feels like I'm stealing you from her. Right. But then on top of that, when you bring kids into the picture, like we have children now, and your mom now looks at how we parent, and she's like, oh, well, I would never do that. Doesn't Seth know? I mean, Seth should know. Well, Melanie's the one that she must be the one who's causing the problem. So there's this weird dynamic where not only have I stolen Seth from his mom, but now I'm like ruining her grandchildren because I'm so terrible.
Because culturally you are the mother and you're more nurturing or whatever.
Well,
and
they just think
if anything is going wrong.
Yeah, if anything goes
kids,
wrong, it's my
fault. It's your fault, right?
So
because
here's
I raised Seth, so I did a great job. Darn it, I did a great job.
Hold on, it's gonna say the phone number. You probably can't hear it.
No,
the phone is ringing and it's like talking. But anyway, we can't edit, so it doesn't matter. But so what I'm thinking when I hear it says, "When do you put your foot down?" So in our families, in our relationship with my in-laws, there is no putting your foot down. That's not really a thing. And even the language of like, I'm going to put my foot down, that would annihilate our relationship. That would be
in both
like
families.
a nail in the,
in both.
Sure. That would be like a nail in the coffin of our relationship.
Well, it would hurt
Let me talk.
people's feelings.
Just quit. And so he was saying like the other day with the swim t-shirts, right? Our children got really bad sunburns. Our redheads did anyway. And they had their swimming shirts on and they're all sunburnt underneath their shirts. So we were going to take their shirts off, but then we realized, it's too hard to take them off. They can just eat with their shirts on, then go back to swimming. But then your mom got upset about that. Yeah. And so this is what I'm getting to. Seth had to put his foot down.
Well,
and just let me talk.
I can't not talk.
Apparently. But what it looked like was like I had said, oh, it's okay. He can leave his shirt on. Shirley said it was okay. We'll put a towel on his seat. No big deal. We solved the problem. And for some reason, his mom wasn't having it. And so he had to just like lovingly say to her, hey, we've come up with a solution. It's okay. It's okay. This is what we're doing. So there was an element of like, excuse me, eliminating the options. Like you had to eliminate the options.
Right. There was no ambiguity in there. And when I, as the, dad of the house or whatever,
No, you're the son. So you always, Seth always say blood speaks to blood.
Right.
Which I think is a weird quote, but it makes sense. I
Can
can't.
you explain what that means?
I can't cut his mother off and tell her and put my foot down to her. That wouldn't work.
Right.
He can. And if Seth has a problem with my mom, he would want me to bring it up with my mom, not him to talk to my mom.
Right.
My mom's the worst. Dawn.
So
Just kidding.
circling back to that situation, I said, this is what we're doing. We're leaving the shirt on. That's it.
Yeah, and he like walked away and we all went inside and started
And then that
eating.
was it. And it kind of got funky or whatever, but that's just what it was. And I would say before we, air quotes, put our foot down, we want to have conversations before that, right? Like putting your foot down is kind of the last last
I would say,
straw
yeah,
kind of thing, which that could be dangerous, not dangerous physically, but just dangerous emotionally, because sometimes these situations get really funky. So you say, you know what, this is what we prefer and this is what we want to do. And if they're not listening to that, we do it again and then do it maybe a third time and then say, you know what, this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
No choice. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
And the thing I think too with that idea of putting your foot down, like I'm having to check myself with this whole scenario and how I feel about it, because it's really triggering. It makes me feel really terrible when like Seth's mom or family will like say I'm a bad mom, because they do,
Well, they don't say you're a bad mom.
They don't say I'm a good mom, that's for sure. But it's all implied very much. And so I have to check myself that I'm not retaliating, because that's what I would, if I were to say, I'm going to put my foot down, I would 100% be putting my foot down because I'm so hurt, and I would be acting out of that hurt. I wouldn't be acting out of love, trying to bring a good solution that honors everyone. So that's my biggest sort of like, I got to think about where I'm coming from when I'm attempting to create a boundary. And that goes back to being
having a high level of differentiation. It's not taking things right off the bat. Personally, not getting our feelings hurt,
or if we get our feelings hurt, like really reassessing, like
stepping back.
Why is that happening?
Trying to understand it the best you can. I think you've done a really good job in that, and I think I talked about this in a video. It's us being together in this is what I think makes it work.
Yeah,
there were times a long time ago when we weren't together, and my mom was, bringing issues or whatever, and I think kind of same thing for you. I mean, that's happened before. So,
well, hold on, let me say something.
Okay, go ahead.
So another important thing is that like us being on a team, we weren't really on a team when we first got married. We didn't know how to. And so what would happen, which I didn't really fully appreciate this, how hard this is, but Seth's mom would come to him with all of her frustration, because she was like, oh, I can't believe that this, or whatever she was frustrated about. And then I would come to Seth with whatever I was frustrated about. And he was being completely pulled in two different directions. Which direction is right and which direction is wrong?
Right, because neither there's loyalties.
Neither one. They're both right. And it's just about how do we, and I think as a wife, it's important to realize that, because I couldn't fully appreciate what that would be like, like it would be as if my dad would come to me and be like, I have all these problems with your husband. And then Seth would come to me like, I have all these problems with your dad. Like that would be really, really hard.
Yeah. And you'd be torn in the middle. And this hopefully maybe this message it just isn't to wives, but also to the mothers-in-laws as well.
It's for everyone.
And speaking to your daughter-in-law and speaking to your son-in-law, keep it cool. Like,
keep
really,
it cool.
what are you trying to do? You have to weigh. It's like, okay, are my feelings, if I say my feelings in a reactive, not a proactive way, is that going to cause marriage problems between my son and his wife, or my daughter and their husband? Because that's the last thing you would want to do. So there are ways that you can approach this rationally and still be emotive, still get your feelings out, and still be true to yourself. However, in a much more succinct way that just makes a lot more sense. Which this is not something that we learn in marriage, right?
Yeah.
And so I have to really preface this whole in-law thing. I think my parents are great. I think they're crazy, just like everybody's crazy. I think your parents are great. They're crazy too. But we're all crazy, and we all love each other. So we're not talking
Trash.
stuff about either parent. I respect my mom, my dad. I respect your dad and mom immensely, and they've both done a lot for us to help us get to where we are and all this stuff. So we're not talking any trash whatsoever.
And I think too, using the the Millennian approach to positive family ego mass.
Oh, that alien thing you've been talking about, man. I don't get that crap. What the heck is that?
But if you do that and you look at both sides of your families of origin, your origi.
I'm not sure.
Family of origi. That's the best. But you look at both sides and find the things that are good, right? Like, what did you just do?
It's hot in here.
Oh, find the things that are good about both of your families and really lean into the things that are positive on both sides. So that's one thing that I think we've spent a lot of time focusing on what is good about both of our families. So we're not taking jabs at his family or my family.
Right.
It's just, we're kind of doing the 30,000 foot view of things and like, how do we look at it differently? So another question that we got is, what does it really mean and look like to leave and cleave? Like biblically speaking,
right?
Should this be done by both men and women? Yes, I think it should be done by both men and women, but I don't think that it means the things that culturally maybe our society thinks it means.
What do you mean?
Because our families of origin are communities. They are like little micro communities.
Leave and cleave doesn't mean...
You asked me what it meant and then you talked. I'm out of here. I'm moving to Sparta.
Do you know where Sparta is?
Athens.
No, that's a city.
I don't know. Greece.
I think it's in Greece. Yeah.
Anyway, so I think that the idea of leaving and cleaving is biblical, yes, and I think all that means is you have a different home that you live in sometimes, and you create your own little microcosm community with your spouse, right?
Do you know what this really means?
Yeah, go ahead.
It means you differentiate from your family, and you join with your spouse.
Yes.
You leave and cleave.
Yes.
Right?
What does cleave mean?
Wonk wonk. This. You hold on to your spouse. Cleave, I don't know. Maybe that means cut ties, but if it means that, I don't.
No,
agree.
cleave, like cleavage, like boobs put together.
Okay.
Leave and cleave. You.
That's my
really
favorite part of the Bible.
All right. But hold on.
Yes. And should this be done by both men and women? Yes. I'm going to reframe your question. Should we differentiate, and is it good for husbands and wives? Yes, 100%. Yes. Differentiate yourself. You're your own person. You have your own autonomy, your own thoughts. You're differentiated. And then you join with your spouse, and you differentiate from both family of origins in a good way, right?
Yes.
So that's what it means.
I think of literally, hold on, like the word cleave, like cleavage, leave and cleave.
Right.
Like if you think of two boobs in a bra, they're not one big boob. They're two separate boobs. They're really close together. It would be creepy if they were one giant boob, like an udder.
Cleavage is healthy?
Cleavage is great. Anyway.
Okay, next question. How do you navigate in-laws pre-marriage?
This is a great one.
What were some fears you had then? How have those developed over time or lessened? And what are some new things you've learned, understood better, or grateful for when it comes to relationship with in-laws? Pre-marriage, I had no idea, honestly. Here's the thing. Pre-marriage, I thought that my family of origin was normal.
That's true.
And Melanie would join me, and we would do just normal stuff, right? And maybe the same thing for you, because remember, family of origin is the university that we grew up in, right? So you cannot say that you did not expect me to assimilate into your family of origin, especially living out in Seattle. I certainly
didn't think about it, though. I mean, I want to be really clear. I never, ever, ever, ever had any expectation that was like conscious that I thought, oh yes, Seth will assimilate into my family of origin. Like
it was totally unconscious, because I remember we used to have fights about that. I was like, we're going over there again? Oh my goodness. We go over there like 3 times a week for a million birthdays and this and that and the other. And this was early on. So it's like, let's do our own thing kind of. Now it's great. It's just, you just chill and do your own thing. And I appreciate that community.
I think early on, the thing that's like in this related to this question is, and why I think it's interesting that you're saying that is, my family didn't have a problem with you.
Mm-hmm.
Like there was nothing that my family was like, oh, Seth is bad at this, or he's no good at that, or
Mm-hmm.
did you think that was okay? But your
Mm-hmm.
family had loads of problems with
Mm-hmm.
me. So there was that. I mean, I think that was a really big factor in it that,
Mm-hmm.
I don't.
Well, you were an outsider coming in, and especially in Southern culture, and you being not Southern, like from Seattle. So you were clearly an outsider. And this is how, if I have some Southern listeners out there, it's like an ethnicity almost. I'm serious.
Non-Southern.
No, I'm serious. Like, yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, it is. Like
Southern
you're
or
a-
non-Southern. It doesn't matter if you're black or white or native or Hispanic or whatever. It's Southern or non-Southern. It's like, oh, West Coast people, they are, So it's really an outsider coming in. And
Yeah.
as your family, I was probably just a novelty of like, oh, his accent's great or whatever. I wasn't an outsider. I was more kind of join our thing. So as far as expectations and stuff.
Well, I think that my family looked at you for what you were good at. My family was like, oh, he's going to graduate school. He used to be a drummer. That's interesting. Like everything that you did, they just looked at it and were like, that is a good thing. And how can he be better at that? And so I don't know. It's hard to even say, like, we didn't have fears necessarily or assumptions or ideas back then. It was like we just had what was directly in front of us.
Yeah, it was pretty wide open spaces. And
but had we known now what back then, like had we known the stuff we know now way back then, I could have looked at all the stuff differently, because nothing between how your family views me has changed. Everything is like, oh, this is a phase. She'll just whatever. Like she doesn't really like that. Or and like even the other day, your uncle was like, oh, do you remember how short your hair was? It was ridiculous. It's like, I happened to be the one who cut my hair, and
Right.
I liked it.
How about this? Why was it ridiculous though?
Because he didn't.
No, I
wasn't
would
used
ask.
to it.
I would ask
Yeah.
him this question. It'd be funny.
But hold on. So what I was saying is like, there are predictors for sure, and I wish that I had known to lovingly communicate, like that.
like boundaries.
Not boundaries, just differences, like the fruit salad of it all. Like
Oh, yeah.
we are not going to be a smoothie. We shouldn't be a smoothie, and I think that had I known how to do that better, maybe it would have helped. It would have helped us to understand and navigate the situation better. I don't know that it would have changed it on like your parents' side, really.
It may have sped things up a little bit.
Maybe, but I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know that we're any farther ahead when we're actually with your family. Then,
Yeah.
see what I'm saying?
But, well, maybe a little bit. But I want to say to the last part of this question, take.
Wait, what's the last part? What are you grateful?
I don't know. What are
for
some
when it
things you've
com-
learned, understood better, or grateful for? I'm grateful that we have gone on a quest thingy. I'm thinking of Lord of the Rings one.
A quest
Men of intelligence.
thing. Okay, go.
Okay, sorry. That we have adopted a growth mindset, and we want to make it better, even
Yeah.
if other people don't. That's okay. That's the whole that's the crux of differentiation. And one thing I would say is identify the good things from both family of origins. Identify the things that you don't want to perpetuate, and go with the former in that.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
One thing that I read in the comments of the thread thing was that one of the women was saying when their family of origin or their in-law stuff gets crazy, their code word, her and her husband's code word is like their last name. So it'd be like Team Studley, right? And it's a reminder that no matter what is going on in this sort of external situation, like people are arguing or so-and-so saying you're not a good mom, or they are questioning how you parent, blah, blah, blah. You look at each other in a moment, you kind of sneak away and just say Team Studley or Team whatever,
Right.
Schafferhofer. And you kind of give that little bit of like, I got you, you got me, we're
Right.
in this together. I know this is hard.
Right. Going back to, hey, we're
We're a team.
Whatever's out there,
Yeah.
we're good.
And I think a big part of that is being optimistically strong and don't look at the questions. Listen, being really optimistically strong together and having that loving strength. So especially in family of origin stuff, you can't come in and just like, fire hose people's opinions down, because their opinions are just as valid as yours. It's more a matter of how do you walk through that consciously, together, lovingly, and supporting the family that your spouse had before you were even a part of it. You don't want to dismantle that. You don't need to point out the flaws that your in-laws have. You don't. That's not your place. And you would hate it if your kid's girlfriend did that to you. You'd be like, eat some Duke, kid. That's what you would be like.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, let's go to let's skip that one.
Let's see. No, I think that's really important.
Okay.
But, well, hold on. Let's go to, so, how do you deal with conflict? It says, my mother-in-law has openly admitted that she resents me for stealing her son and has been highly critical of me since day one. It seems as if we are in a constant battle with her. It's exhausting and very frustrating.
The first thing that came to my mind is the mom clearly has some sort of issues going on. If she is resentful for another woman stealing, air quotes, stealing her son, then she needs to do some work about, okay, where is she at? What kind of identity does she have without her son? And this is a real case where I don't think the wife is going to do this. The wife needs to talk to her husband, and the husband needs to talk to her mom about his mom about, mom, yo, this is whatever, blood talks to blood example that we talked about earlier.
I think there's a lot to say in that idea that the mother is going to listen to the son better than the mother's going to listen to the daughter-in-law.
Right.
And so
even if her level of listening isn't good, it's still going to be more
more receptive for sure. So my thought is, like you're saying, like if you could clearing structure communicate with your husband, and if your husband was there and heard his mom say that you stole so-and-so from me, whatever, that's even better in a way, because that gives that, like, he'll know it's true that you said that. But you can take the clearing structure, fill it out, and fill it out for between the daughter-in-law and the mother-in-law, right? Not us, but me and Seth's mom. And I would fill out my half, and Seth and I would talk about it, and then he could present what we talked about to his mother from his perspective, not mine.
Right.
So you couldn't go to your mom and say, Melanie says, because she's not going to care.
Right.
But if you go to your mom and say, wow, Melanie said that you stole me from you, and that hurts my wife, but it also, mom, it hurts me. I chose to marry Melanie.
Right.
I chose to have kids with her and to make a life with her, and I would love it, mom, if you could embrace that she's the wife that I want and you're the mom that I want.
Right.
And we can walk this through together, but it has to come from you.
Yeah, the blood to blood. I believe strongly it has to come from that point. And you can be, this is talking to the husband, you can be strategic around this.
Please be strategic.
No. Make a sandwich. Something good, hard stuff, something good. Mom, you know what? It's so good to be back in your house. I have so many memories. Maybe this sounds lame or whatever. And you did a really great job of raising me or whatever. I appreciate all your hard work. And, I've been talking to my wife, and she's feeling some stuff from you, and I really want to talk about that because sometimes that makes a conflict for us, and I want you to know that you are my mom, and this is my wife. You raised me in a good way. I chose this good wife or whatever, blah, blah, blah. And we need to talk about this, okay? So, and here comes the other part of the sandwich. And I know that we're going to talk about this and make it better so we can all be on the same page, and we can talk about if people got hurt feelings or whatever. I'm here for you, mom, blah, blah, blah. So sandwich it in between stuff and really be strategic around that. I like to think, and I think this is just a natural flow of families. What is it called? Family life cycle, which is another thing we can talk about in therapy. We all have different stages, birth, marriage, kids, jobs, all these things, these critical things. And there comes a point, in my opinion, where the student becomes the teacher, and like with our level of education, which is higher than my mom and dad's, and we make more money and all this stuff or whatever, it's like we've kind of changed roles. Like we are autonomous, we are differentiated, we made a lot of good decisions and are wise in our stuff. You can leverage that in a way of like, you can think about it differently. It's almost like Seth, my computer's broken, and I'm like, oh, well, did you turn it on, kind of thing. And then I just go and fix it. And there's like a level of respect in that. Am I making sense? It's kind of like we can take a higher view of stuff just because it's where we are. And guess what? Our kids hopefully will do the same to us when we're at that level.
It's sort of what I think of when you say that is, and hold on for a second, it's going to feel a little bit weird for a minute, but like, in the family system that you had before you were married, before you knew me, there's a pattern of behavior. Right. So like if your family says something negative about you, you get upset, you fight, they say something negative, right? There's just a pattern, whatever that is. So then we got married, and now we're at the level of whatever that we're at. We're not any better or worse.
Right.
It's that we've stepped out of that pattern. And stepping out of that pattern is kind of what you're saying of like, leveling up a little bit, and it disrupts what they are used to.
Right.
So it's confusing. Like it's confusing on a bunch of different levels, but it's the necessary thing to stop perpetuating the negative, negative words, negative whatever stuff. So I don't know if that makes it sense in a different
what
way.
you're talking about is a positive or negative feedback loop, right?
But it's an awareness feedback loop. It's an awareness loop.
Well, yeah, but the point is it's a loop, whatever, all these contextual things around it. We're stepping out, and we can look at that feedback loop differently and also do different things to not perpetuate that same feedback loop that hasn't been helpful. And that's so interesting because feedback loops serve a purpose. Yeah. And so...
Well, and the thing that leads me to, out of that is that there was a couple comments where people were like, yeah, kind of like the putting my foot down or the I let her have it kind of conversations that have been in the thread. And those are fine. But the thing that I've learned is because Seth's family of origin is so different from mine culturally, and just like different in a lot of ways anyway, I cannot just be myself, right? And I don't think I should. That might sound weird for a moment, but I would not say the things that I say to Seth to his family. Like they wouldn't, that's not wise. They don't need to hear all of my thoughts and opinions. Seth doesn't either, but he takes it. So I give him. But I think there is something to be said in learning how to lovingly edit your thoughts, your advice, your input. Like, you don't need to vomit your internal world out onto everyone around you. Like, just in general.
That's just not wise. You wouldn't do that at work. Why would you do it in a family situation?
Yeah, your work relationship is far more likely to be shorter than your family relationship.
Yeah, so this can even be an intervention that I just thought of. In dealing with some family of origin and in-law stuff, be professional.
Yeah, that's great.
That sounds weird, but put on your family professional
game
suit
face
or whatever,
thinking cap,
and do it like that. And sometimes it's okay to take things personal. Sometimes it's not. I guess if that makes sense. I don't want to be confusing here.
For example, okay, and just
boy, whenever she does, okay, I know something's coming.
Well, so like yesterday or the day before, whatever day it was, so Tough, our son was asking me to find his shorts because he wanted to go swimming, and I kept saying, "Go find them yourself," right? If I had found them for him, definitely I would have been told, "You never let your son do anything on his own." That is 100% what I would have heard from your family, right? But you went up and found his shorts for him, which they were where I told him to look 1,000 times. And what did your mom say? Do you remember?
You're such a good dad.
I mean, it was like, this is a power play move I'm watching her do. She's doing this right in front of me. I mean, there's no, that wasn't
I
healthy,
know.
right?
I know. And had you said something, it would have made the situation
absolutely
very much worse. Or you could take a differentiated stance and go, I'm not going to say anything.
Yeah.
I'll process it with my husband, where it would be appropriately done.
Yeah.
And you really have to be judicious with your feelings, words, and emotions in this situation, especially ours, and we're just being real.
Yeah. But I just thought it was...
Well, yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah.
We make it work. We make it work. Make it work.
Make it work.
Right. And so, okay, let's move on to the other... here's a good question that I have an idea about. How about dealing with bitterness/unforgiveness towards the in-laws for bad patterns, behaviors that they taught your spouse?
I have no bad patterns.
Okay. So this is, I don't know who wrote this, but I think this question reflects more on you.
Like a judgment?
Yeah. So, if we have 4 people in this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 being you, number 1, 2, your husband, 3 and 4 being your in-laws, I think this question reflects more on you, number 1. And let me tell you why. Because I'm not sure what the bad patterns are, but that is something that you need to talk about with your spouse. Am I making sense here? That is a marriage issue, not a family of origin type of issue.
I get what
it comes from that, you know, but I could say, or you could be mad at me. We could be mad at each other for a million different things.
Well, I mean, there's
Melanie, I hate it when you do this because your mom and dad taught you that, and I'm mad at them now. So,
yeah, there is something.
We need to do the clearing structure about what that is and what I'm okay with, what I'm not okay with. Not blaming your parents for it.
Well, and I think just the idea of, I totally agree with what you're saying, and I feel this a lot because your family of origin is like, they're not hoarders, but they keep absolutely everything. They want everything. They buy everything. There's just crap stuff everywhere. And that has come into our home, and it drives me up the wall because it's like things to take care of and dust and junk and you don't even use it. And so I actually have felt like I wish that Seth's family wasn't like that.
Right.
Because it is now a burden that I have to deal with financially, physically, emotionally, mentally. Like it's a thing I actually have to physically deal with. Right. But I love how you kind of turned that around because goes back to that smoothie versus fruit salad.
Right.
Right. And I'm not going to be mad at the pineapple chunk. It's just a pineapple chunk, right? Can't do a thing about it. Getting mad at it will only make it worse. Right. It'll only perpetuate, it'll grow bitterness more. So my thought about that is how do you turn that around and say, the world is diverse. Everyone is different. My husband is different than I am. I'm different than my husband. How do we make a fruit salad that has the flavors that we want and takes out the flavors? We don't want marshmallows in our fruit salad.
Right.
Let's take them out. And maybe his family of origin side had marshmallows. Maybe yours has walnuts and you just don't like walnuts and he doesn't. Take them out.
So I want to point out something too so with my family having a lot of stuff, I think that's just the culture that we live in. Get more. Oh, I got to have this and that. And because you have made choices to declutter and be more mindful about your stuff, that exacerbates what you see in my family. So you understand what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So I do not want to be like, oh, they don't have a bunch of crap. They just have antiques.
Yes.
And each thing they really, really like.
They value everything.
Like your box of special things, like coins and stuff like that.
My treasure chest that I built, yes.
Yes, that one, which she really did.
A lion mouth with a ring handle, yes.
Right, that one. That's no different. That is special things that you like. My parents just have a lot more.
4 acres.
Special things, right? So I really want to point that out because sometimes decisions that we make will skew our judgments on what other people are doing. And I think that is a perfect example.
Yeah, so
it's kind of like if I start getting on a exercise and health kick and you are not, I will judge, oh my gosh, you're eating French fries again?
Yeah.
Gross, or whatever. And then that becomes not so good.
Yeah.
That's water. Would you stop? That's gross.
No.
Okay, we're about 40 minutes in. Let's kind of...
But I want to say,
okay,
had I decided to be minimalist and have a really, really tidy house and accept others, I wouldn't have a problem with your family.
That's right.
But I was looking at what I wanted and then projecting it out onto the whole world. Why don't they get rid of those things? They don't need them. Look how cluttered their hallway is.
Part of my job as a therapist is really to point out other people's flaws and shortcomings.
There it is.
I'm just kidding. That's the worst thing you could do.
And I want to answer.
It's just my job to my wife.
Yes. I wanted to answer one about, there's a question about how do you manage living with in-laws and not stepping on each other's toes when there is more than one head of the household? So this is a good question because lots of people live with their in-laws at some point, whether that's to pay down debt because we lived with
your mom and dad.
No, we didn't. We lived with them for like a day. When we switched houses.
It was like for a couple of weeks.
I don't remember this.
Okay.
But anyway. So you just totally knocked me off the track. What was I saying? Oh, I think that there's a really So again, this goes back to like clearing structure. And when people talk about setting boundaries and stuff like that, it's so hard because this is like it's like... What?
How about this? The head of household is obviously biblical stuff, and I don't know your guys' situation, living with them long term. Do you have your own kids? You are head of household or whatever, if that's what you deem yourself, for only your little circle.
Yeah,
it's not two. It's like there can't be two CEOs of a company, right? And this whole head of household, it's like, resign your head of household ship or whatever when you're living with your parents, because it sounds like you're trying to hold on to something that you think should work and like, oh, we got to be like close-fisted on this and blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, drop that stuff for a minute and you can do that. You can do that when you're in your own house, right? And of course, if this is, maybe you have kids, I don't know, it's not very contextual here, but if you have kids, of course, you are going to be in charge of your own kids. You and your wife are going to be in charge of your own kids. But it's like two CEOs of a thing. That's just not going to work. So drop that idea temporarily. I'm not saying it's a bad idea or whatever, but no.
But think of it the other way around. I mean, this is the thing that always gets me is like, what would it be like if your in-laws lived with you? They came and lived with you. Would you want your mother-in-law to like rearrange your living room furniture because she thought it was better?
Right.
No, you would like hate every second of it. So don't do that to your mother-in-law, right?
Yeah.
Like people don't, I think if we could have the practice of like, what would it feel like if I was in their shoes? Then we could really have a different view of what's going on and why it's going on.
It's like whose house are you in? It's their house. Whose car are you driving? There can only be one driver, you know? If it's not your car, don't try to drive it. Don't even worry about driving it. Just sit back and take care of your own kids in the back seat or whatever you got to do. I think there's a real problem with young men or maybe old men getting married for the first or third time or whatever and thinking, okay, we have to rearrange this and this is how we're going to run things and this is how...
women do that too.
Yeah,
women
I know,
are
but
like...
guys really have a like, oh, this, okay, yeah, this is fine when we were engaged or whatever and not living together or married, but after this is how we're going to run the show. And there's a real pressure to like figure out how you're going to run the show. And I made a bunch of mistakes early on in that.
Yeah,
and it wasn't like huge mistakes. It's like, well, we would have saved a bunch of money with that, or
don't even talk about that.
Yeah, for real.
We have a whole season about that.
Yeah. Okay. So now, those are great questions. I love this in-law stuff. It's one of the reasons I became a family therapist. If you like the show, if it's been helpful, please go and consider supporting at patreon.com/anatomy of marriage. This is free therapy, people. Free.
It's free.
It's free.
It's free.
Right?
Or
I can charge $125 an hour or whatever.
If you can't support us financially or you don't want to for some reason, please go to iTunes and rate and review the show, because that's a really great way for people to find out about us. Tell all your friends about us.
That's right. And don't turn off just because we're talking about social stuff.
Don't do that.
I want to talk about just really quickly for like 2 or 3 seconds what's going on between you and I. Let's check in with each other. I'll go first. Our kids are staying with my mom and dad. We're at my grandma's house, and it's really cool, I guess, because We don't have to put kids to bed. We don't have to wake them up. You know, we go to bed when we want. We do stuff when we want. We go swimming. And it's just been really, really kind of cool. What about you? I like being here, Greenville and stuff. It's cool.
I like you.
I like you too.
No, I'm having a good time. I mean, I think it's weird because, like we've said, this has like been the hardest. Well, it's not the hardest.
No,
but
it's
this has
definitely the
been one
hardest.
of the weirder visits that we weren't anticipating because it was so easy to get here. Like the kids are older now, and it's like, oh, they're normal. They
Yeah.
can walk and not cry, and they don't need a bag, like a diaper bag, and it just felt so much easier.
Mm-hmm.
And then we got here, and it felt harder. So that was weird.
Yeah.
But then at the same exact time, I think you and I are closer than we've ever been emotionally. But we were like closer, and we're on a team, and it feels just awesome. Like we have better communication than we've ever had for sure. So if Seth wants to do something that I don't want to do or vice versa, we bring a solution
Right.
instead of like fight for 3 hours about it. And that just feels really amazing. And I think there's this thing that happens once you get past all the kind of like crap of fighting and miscommunicating when you finally figure out what your little secret tunnels to one another's communication style is.
Right.
Nacho Libre secret tunnels. But when you finally find the secret tunnels to your spouse's communication, the amount of fun that you can have, even when stuff is like dumb, the amount of happiness that you can feel, even when stuff is hard, the amount of joy you can have, even when nothing works out, is phenomenal.
Yeah.
It's really phenomenal. And it's, so that's been really cool.
Right.
Like, I just feel like we've connected in a way that is really, really new for us.
And plus, we're going to the beach, and we're going to eat some great food and oysters.
And hopefully not get
soon.
eaten by sharks.
Yeah, hopefully. If you're in Charleston, you're a fan of the show, maybe we could
I
hang
call
out
it
at a bar
Charlie Stone.
at Charlie Stone, South Carolina. Yeah, so if you like the show, go to iTunes, rate and review it. Join the Facebook groups now because obviously we interact with the listeners and answer questions and talk about stuff that you want. Huh, imagine that. So go to anatomyofmarriage.com. And all right, anything else?
We're going to interview your family, hopefully, so that'll be pretty
Oh,
cool.
man. I'm kind of nervous about that.
All right, we love you.
All right, peeps.
We love you.
Bye.
Bye.